There's multiple outstanding murder cases that we're looking at. I can't get into numbers. There's hundreds of outstanding missing persons occurrences that we're looking at. And like I said, there's even some outstanding, I shouldn't say outstanding, but occurrences where there's been a sudden death.
I'm Adrian Gobrel. As we told you earlier on City News today, right here inside police headquarters, homicide officers confirming they have positively ID'd the remains of 2 additional victims for a total of 3 and laid a 6th first-degree murder charge against alleged serial killer Bruce McArthur. Though, could McArthur have been arrested earlier? As we told you this week on City News, McArthur was convicted of a vicious assault back in 2003 when he hit a male sex worker repeatedly with a metal pipe. Though today, for the first time, homicide detectives and inspectors confirming that when they first started looking at McArthur as a potential suspect in recent months, they never saw any criminal history.
Did he have a criminal record when you began investigating him as a suspect?
Technically, no.
If McArthur's convictions had shown up, if his previous convictions had shown up, perhaps during Project Houston even, could this have saved lives?
You're asking me a hypothetical question on an area that I'm not going to comment on.
Retired homicide officers have told City News the only way McArthur would have had his record wiped out is because if he had received a pardon for his 2003 conviction. Today, Toronto police claim that McArthur is now responsible for the death of Skandaraj Navarathan. The 40-year-old was reported missing September 16, 2010, and was part of Project Prism, an investigation that was looking into 3 missing men in Toronto's Church and Wellesley Village, though the whole investigation was scrapped in 2014 and they never arrested a suspect. The fact it appears McArthur's criminal past was wiped clean doesn't sit well with some who've been warning police of an alleged serial killer in Toronto's LGBT community for years.
If they did catch him earlier, would other men have gone missing, including Andrew, and would they have died? If he was pardoned or not, I think there's still some sort of a record there to say that he had some activity, right, a criminal activity and a violent past. And if they paid attention to that a little bit more, and again, this is where we look at racism. If it was me who had a prior conviction, I don't know if I would have been pardoned or not, number one. Number two, if I was pardoned, I think they would still take a closer look at me, right? And this has been something that, racialized communities have been facing for years.
Understandable concerns, though when we did speak with a retired homicide detective this week, he said even if McArthur wasn't pardoned and his record did show up, it may have been difficult for homicide investigators to peg him as a suspect, considering they're likely looking at hundreds of different individuals.
Mr. McArthur has now been charged with 1 additional count of first-degree murder. This new charge is in relation to the murder of Skanda Navaratnam. We have now identified the remains of 3 individuals from these planters, number 1 being Andrew Kinsman, number 2 being Sarush Mahmoodi, and number 3 being Skanda Navaratnam.
Are there police forces in the GTA working with you on this investigation now?
They are, yes.
How many others?
Internationally, there have been other police forces involved as well.
A wide-ranging, telling update from Toronto Police Homicide right here inside headquarters today. I'm Adrian Gobrel. As you just heard, homicide detectives positively IDing the remains of 2 additional victims for a total of 3 and laying a 6th first-degree murder charge against alleged serial killer Bruce McArthur for the alleged killing of Skandaraj Navarathan, who went missing back in September of 2010. Police also confirming the largest homicide investigation in our city's history continues to grow with each passing day.
Well, to put it in perspective, there's multiple outstanding murder cases that we're looking at. I can't get into numbers. There's hundreds of outstanding missing persons occurrences that we're looking at. And like I said, there's even some outstanding, I shouldn't say outstanding, but occurrences where there's been a sudden death that we're looking at.
Detective Sergeant Hank Nsinga also revealing today that along with McArthur's Thorncliffe Park apartment, they believe there's additional murder scenes. They are interested in at least 2 other properties in the GTA, and they will be going back to this Leaside home and others when the ground thaws. Investigators have sifted through upwards of 20 planters and found the remains of 6 individuals to date. Police initially charged McArthur in the death of Andrew Kinsman and Salim Essen in late January. Their investigation expanded to include Majid Kayhan, Saroush Mahmoudi, and Dean Lissawick. Homicide confirmed they ID'd Kinsman using fingerprints, but had to use dental records to ID Navaratham and Mahmoudi. They're awaiting DNA results to ID the remains of 3 other individuals, though police predicting today that more victims will be unearthed, with the investigation expanding each day as they look at cold cases and work to track McArthur's past as far back as they possibly can.
This has been called an unprecedented investigation. You yourself have said there's hundreds of officers involved. How sustainable is an investigation of this size for Toronto Police? How much longer can it go before you start having to pare down resources because just of the sheer amount of officers being used?
Depends what we find. As long as we're finding things, it's not getting pared down. It will get expanded. Our deputy chief is here today, and I'll confirm to you that whatever I've asked for, I've received. Manpower is not an issue.
The OPP are now involved in the investigation. As you heard earlier, so are police forces in the GTA, across the GTA, as well as international police agencies as they try and trace back some places where McArthur may have traveled to and visited. Ahead on City News, some disturbing revelations. Why wasn't McArthur's criminal record showing up and pulled up when police began looking at him as a suspect, considering the fact he was convicted back in 2003 for viciously assaulting a male sex worker?